Our next reader tonight is Don Peteroy. Don lives with his wife in Cincinnati, Ohio. His short story, The Circuit Builders, was awarded first place in Playboy's 2012 College Fiction Contest and appears in the October 2012 issue. Other stories of Don's have appeared or are forthcoming in Cream City Review, Permafrost, 1111, Chattahoochee Review, Santa Clara Review, Yamasi, and elsewhere. He is a PhD candidate at the University of Cincinnati. He blogs at letterstojamesfranco.com. Wally, which came out on Burrow Press, the group that spawned this particular reading series, not coincidentally, was his first book, and we're immensely proud to have him here today reading. Please welcome Don Peteroy.
Thank you. Thanks for Burrow Press for publishing me and having me read here. And you can buy my book today afterwards, right? You can. We'll be over here somewhere, and you will buy it. Okay, so the last time I read this section, I always read the same section. Last time I read this, it's the one part of the book where I slip into like academic, I'm going to back up there, where I slip into like academic tone. So you could tell I was taking a class on Marxism when I wrote this. The last time I read this, it was at a non-academic function, and it just went over everyone's head, and it was bad. I just got stares. So now that we're all highly smart people, I'm going to read this one section. The context is, Wally has abandoned his wife. Am I too loud? All right, Wally has abandoned his wife. He's driving as far north as he possibly can up towards the Yukon territories. He's chasing after a therapeutic road trip epiphany, and we all know how that works. Worked well for Kerouac. And his wife is a physicist, and she's discovered a particle, and he feels stupid. So he's coping with childhood memories and also feelings of intellectual inferiority. At this point, he's somewhere in Canada, and he's stopping. At 5 o'clock, I went down to the Watson Lake Hotel bar and ordered a hamburger and fries. I took out my copy of Why I Am Not a Christian, but then 3 college students approached me. One said, "Anyone who reads Bertrand Russell in a motel bar in Watson Lake has to be an American." His name was Phil. They were students at the University of Washington and had come here to visit Phil's sister. I told them that I, too, was a college student, studying theology at Cincinnati Christian University. That's a lie. "I'm on academic leave," I said. "I received a grant to study the Episcopalian movement in the Yukon." We ate together and swapped adventure stories, all of mine fabricated. Finally, Phil asked if I'd ever seen the Northern Lights. I told him that I had, years ago, in Vermont. "Okay," he said, "but have you ever seen them stoned?" I'm high, on pot. No northern lights tonight, only intense interior lights. Being zooted makes me think of quantum physics, which makes me want to believe everything they say in Barnes & Noble is true. We create reality with our thoughts. One night, while he's addressing Elizabeth, his wife, were eating Indian takeout for dinner, you tried to explain renormalization in gravity physics. You said that if gravity were a particle rather than a field, all the gravity particles would attract each other. The collective force would become infinite. It would make existence impossible. In an effort to solve this dilemma, you conjectured that either a portion of our universe's gravity exists in other dimensions, that's why gravity is so weak, or space-time is actually a continuum, like a fluid, and the forces that govern physics present themselves as separate from each other, but are actually different characteristics of one thing. You said particles appear as particles, but they're just really a concept, a totality of interactions. You were getting deep. I bit into my tasteless matar paneer. You said, if space-time is woven together, that would account for particle substitutions. That would prove the existence of the B gravitrope and the gravitational force discrepancies. I couldn't share your enthusiasm because I didn't know what the fuck you were talking about. But I wanted to know. You were just incapable of explaining it. That weekend, I bought a book called How to Survive in the Quantum Universe. Then I bought another one called Mind Matters, Understanding Self Through Quantum Physics. I had left the second book by the toilet, and when you went there to defecate, you found it. You brought it into the living room and said, "What the hell is this?" I shrugged. "I'm trying to learn about physics." "This is misinformation. This author has no credibility. Why don't you just ask me if you have questions?" "But you're not good at explaining things." This outraged you. You said, "No, you're not good at listening." I huffed. You continued, "This stuff breeds stupidity." That's where I changed the page. Despite your beliefs, I felt brilliant when I read that garbage, and brainless every time you talked about physics. Whenever we sat down to talk, the conversation would inevitably go back to the bee gravitrope. The fucking thing was hypothetical. You once said finding it was as unlikely as finding Santa Claus, but we talked about it as if it were a steel beam. You shrouded your insecurity with scientific rhetoric. I felt so miserably stupid. Do you all know what the Transformer action figure Soundwave is? All right, I'm getting the blank stare. That means it was if you were a child in the 80s and you had the Transformers, it was like the one robot that could become a cassette player. So he folds up into like a cassette player. And he has no wheels. He's unlike all the other Transformers. He can't really do anything. He sucks. While he's obsessed with this thing. Understand this, if you can. Soundwave was impractical. My friends and family were unable to detect the urgency behind my need to own that toy because I lacked the rhetorical know-how to express it. As I got older and learned impressive words, I was still barred from communicating my desires because adults aren't supposed to want toys. Hell, I put Soundwave on our wedding gift registry, yet everyone, including you, overlooked it like it was a joke. What I should have done was offer an eloquent explanation, one that would make everyone feel so dumb that they'd buy me the toy just to get me to shut up. Elizabeth, let's not depreciate Soundwave's aesthetic supremacy. His form carries a greater significance than his function. Notice how the delicate contour of his royal blue casing encapsulates the industrial gray interior, suggesting the tensions between the natural and the mechanized. As Soundwave transforms from robot to object, he subordinates his higher function to a utilitarian ideology, and his box-like containment of self becomes indicative of the repressed revolutionary desire. His inability to play cassette shows that the prevailing ideology will not let him speak, yet his very being infers a direct relation to this oppressive ideology, and one must wonder if his inability to perform is identical to the worldview that created him. Is he aware of this defect? His consciousness is false, his true nature concealed within the illusion of functionality. His position in the terrain is of that of an objectified commodity. He becomes alienated from his inner world. His life no longer belongs to him, but to the object of his degrading transformation, an object of immense silence. Do you understand what the fuck I'm saying? Had Santa respected my wishes, Soundwave would have prepared me to accept my own functional misgivings within the manufactured causality of the adult world. The toy would have taught me about use rather than pleasure. His name was Soundwave, yet he emitted no sound. His name described his limitation, a faucet that drips only when you're not listening to it. I thought that maybe if I had him, my grandfather, aunt, and sister would hear his silence and just stop. They'd stop. They'd be like that particle before you unlocked it from chaos. Not just my grandfather, but my mind, Elizabeth. My mind would seek a mutual state of coherence with Soundwave's inaudible existence, a tape player that played nothing but nothing. Every week I'd cut his pictures out of Toys R Us ads in the newspaper and send them to Santa. I once wrote, "Santa, please bring me this fucking piece of shit. I went a whole year without pulling my sister's hair. Do you hear me?" In 1983, 7 years old, I unwrapped the footballs, each stuffed with different sized boxes. I was so eager, starving, the excitement becoming anguish with the passing of each gift, the paper becoming Santa's flesh as I tore into him, pulling, severing, maiming cartilage, unhooking organs, dismantling page turn, him piece by piece, discarding skin so that I could get at what was inside. I'll stop there. Thank you for my Marxist outrage. The rest of the book is like normal. And you could buy it afterwards. It's like a story. Yeah, I give this back to Jared at this point.
Thanks, Don.